Hi there, and welcome to another episode of The Inevitable. This is MotorTrend show about the future of the car, the future of mobility. Where are we going and how are we going to get there? I am Johnny Lieberman, as always, joined by my co-host Ed Lowe.
Hello.
And we've got a bit of a mashup episode today that we recorded.
Up at Rennsport Reunion 7. So that was, at this point when you're hearing this, a few weeks ago, up in WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna, Seca, up in Monterey, California. Huge event celebrating the 75th anniversary of Porsche, the 60th anniversary of the 911. And what better way to celebrate than by having an expert from Porsche on, as well as their longtime partner in high performance, in motorsports, Michelin. So this is a special mashup edition. These guys were super busy. But they made time for us, and we got to talk to three experts. One guy from Porsche, Oliver Schwab, who we'll introduce in just a moment fully, and then Jason Anzalone, who is the Michelin Motorsports Director for North America. And then we followed up with a conversation with Ed Gliss, who is the original equipment product category manager for Michelin North America.
And what that means is he has one of the most insane, covetous jobs. Like, there's not a lot of jobs I'm jealous of. His sounds even more fun.
Yeah, before he became this product category manager, he was a nine-year veteran test driver for Michelin, driving all sorts of fun things.
So in other words, when Corvette would say, "Hey, the Z06 needs its own unique tire," he'd develop it. So imagine what that was like. But let's start with Oliver. Oliver Schwab, he is doing it's called the Porsche GT4 e-Performance.
Yes.
I want to say.
So he is a longtime motorsports guy as well. So Oliver Schwab from Porsche and Jason Anzalone from Michelin Motorsports, they have a long history of working together in supporting various series. You know, obviously tires are among the most important things you can have in any kind of race car. And that's why Michelin was up there, because at Rennsport Reunion 7, they're running a bunch of race cars, a bunch of races. It's a good opportunity to get out in front and talk to folks.
And the e-Performance is essentially the kind of quasi-production version of the Mission R. It's like it's developed for
it's still
potential
a concept,
spec series. Yeah,
yeah, it's the future. It was a very unique opportunity because Rennsport is all about celebrating anniversaries in the past, but we had the opportunity to talk a little about the future, and the future for Porsche and Michelin is electrified. And in this case, yes, this GT4 e-Performance is essentially a 718 Cayman-based race car using the powertrain from the Mission R.
Yeah, which is 2 electric motors, fast-charging battery, and the Michelin tires are sustainable to a degree. They're 67%. 63%, sorry. Sustainable materials. Michelin's eventually working up. They want to be 100%, obviously. I wouldn't even say baby steps. Like, that's a big, almost at a college step.
Right.
So yeah, it was good. And then we get to Ed Gliss, and it's just tires are endlessly fascinating. You know,
it was a good conversation about sort of the general category of tires and how they're developed, and Michelin's unique take on and how they approach both the development through production for passenger car tires, and some of the implications it might have for you.
And it was sort of a hostile recording environment, you might say, for a couple of reasons. One being the sun. So they weren't as long as our normal interviews. But we think if we put these two together, you're going to like it. You're going to watch it right now. Please enjoy Porsche and Michelin.
So let's get started. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming on to The Inevitable. This is MotorTrend's podcast about the future of the car. We have Jason Anzalone, Michelin Motorsports Director for North America, and Oliver Schwab, who is Porsche's
We can have him say it.
GT4E Project GT4E Tour Director.
Well, that was a very long title. No, but in fact, what it's all about is that we are developing the electric future of customer racing, and this is very much what I'm responsible for. Let's put it like this.
And Oliver, you are a virgin to Laguna Seca. This is your first time at the track. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And you arrived yesterday, but this is literally your first day, the first couple of hours you've been here at Laguna Seca.
correct. I think it's still not 24 hours that I'm in the US for this time and basically completely jet lagged. But coming here, it's just like even more mind blowing than it originally would already be.
So let me ask you, because I think for Ed and I, and Jason, maybe for you too, but like, not that it's old hat, but been here a bunch of times.
Well, have you been here?
I've been here several times.
Yeah, a Michelin guy's been here several times. But like, what do you think?
Well, I remember last year when I was in Goodwood at the Festival of Speed for the first time. I said it feels like a kid being in a candy store.
Yeah.
Here, it's, I don't know, think of a superlative which actually even tops that. So it's just absolutely crazy. And I mean, I can understand why this is probably the most iconic Porsche event you have globally.
Yes.
As simple as that.
And to be clear, it's not like you're just some guy off the street. You've had a long career supporting Porsche in motorsport, so you've been to tracks around the world.
Almost 15 years now, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it's actually kind of odd that you've never come here. So.
And it's nice that you still get to that stage, that you still get absolutely wowed. But probably after this one, it's going to be pretty tough to still basically top that one again.
Have you been to Lime Rock?
Not yet.
Aha, see, that's...
Thanks, Johnny. That's good. So it's always
I gotta want
in terms of travel planning.
To me, the way this track drives, and I hope you get a chance to get out on the track, this and Lime Rock, they had this classic thing where it wasn't so technical. It was people wanted the cars to go fast and have fun.
Yeah.
And this is 11 turns, and really 10. Lime Rock is 9 turns. There's a real similarity, and they're just like fun power tracks.
Will you guys during this weekend get a chance to drive the track? Do you think, or at least?
I don't think I'll be on the track this weekend, but you never know.
Let's put it like this. I think I have my strengths somewhere else, so the guys know who to put in the car and who not.
Very, very democratic. This track recently was, I think, a $20 million renovation, resurfaced.
Friends of Laguna, Bruce Canepa's spearheading it, and
but you haven't driven the new surface, right?
No.
Will you? Because you're on the Porsche trip, right?
I am, but I don't.
Sneak onto the track.
I'm going out tomorrow morning. My friend of mine is doing a parade lap, so I'm going to be his passenger.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
But so obviously we're here. This is Rennsport 7. This is a celebration of all things Porsche, all things the history of the company. It's there's a little bit of we get a little emotional too because we're going to celebrate. MotorTrend is going to celebrate its 75th. Next year, so I'm here taking notes. Like, wow, this is how you do it, huh? Like, let me just ask the Porsche guys how much budget they had for this.
Right,
Ours is probably gonna be like 1/100th of that. But amazing celebration. You'll see all the coverage on our site from this event. But let's talk about what you guys are doing here specifically, because while this is, we're surrounded by vintage Porsche, vintage race cars. You guys in particular, I think, have a different angle from the motorsports, the performance side. And for you, Oliver, looking into the future of all of that.
The next 75 years.
Right. So, Jason, what's your focus this weekend and at this event for Michelin?
So, of course, we're here this weekend supporting the Porsche Carrera Cup, which we're the spec tire on. So we're here. My team is working to support the race teams for the weekend. But what Oliver and I are here talking about is really the future of mobility and how we can partner together in a motorsports environment to prove out technology. Obviously, Porsche working on the car. For Michelin, we're working on the tire. And so we have a lot of exciting things that we're focused on, specifically for the GT4E performance, the 63% sustainable material rate tire. So that means the tire is made with 63% sustainable material, which for us at Michelin, we say over 100 years, so the human life, 100 years, the material is renewable. And so we're not trying to use things that can't be sustainably grown or sourced over time. So really we take a very strict approach with this, and it's really exciting for us because we think if we could prove it out on the racetrack, we could take what we learned there, put it into our passenger car tires to really develop something special.
Okay.
And then what is this car? What is this e-performance? What tell us about this?
Well, basically, let's take a step back because the aim of the project on our side is nothing less than to develop the electric future of customer racing. And I mean, if you look at why at Porsche we've been doing
simple little thing to do, yeah.
Absolutely simple little thing to do. But we said, I just mentioned we're talking about the next 75 years. So no one looking at why we do motorsport at Porsche, I mean, there are practically, or there are very much two reasons for that. On the one hand, because motor racing is a test lab. I mean, Jason mentioned it when it comes to tire development, but of course the same counts also for car development, because you are a lot more agile, you're a lot more flexible, and the best of it, I mean, we all love the competition, and in competition you do get an immediate and a direct success feedback whether you've done something well or not. So that's factor number one why we do motorsport. Factor number two is very much that we say it is, from a brand point of view, a differentiator that we have at our brand compared to other OEMs. So therefore, of course, that's also something that we can also, well, let's say, this is providing the fundament for something that we also see here at Rennsport that leads to the fascination around the brand. And of course, with Porsche, it has always been related to motorsport. So taking that into consideration, then looking at what is happening in terms of fleet policy, in terms of political factors, in terms of ecological factors. I mean, you see that on the street car side, the development is clearly going as one path into electrification. So therefore, us internally at Porsche Motorsport, for us, very clearly said, in order to stay relevant, we have to keep playing our part there as well. And then to sort of wrap up the big picture, taking that into consideration, that's exactly the reason why, if you remember at the IAA in Munich in 2021, we had our CEO Oliver Blume back then introducing the Mission R as our vision for an electric customer racing future. And now to put it in perspective again, the Mission R, which was introduced in the IAA, and the technologies underneath the hood there, or underneath the body shell, is exactly the technologies that we took now, what we put in the GT4 performance, let's say as our rolling test lab, which now we take around the world to, besides, let's say, doing the technological development, we also and very clearly want to establish a dialogue with all these various stakeholders that we have around customer racing. Because unlike in works racing, where basically it's the factory competing on its own, at customer racing, of course, we have to find something to make the business of our teams work. We have to find the car and the concept also that makes it work for the drivers, plus the promoters, plus the circuits, plus our partners. And therefore, it's that bigger project that we set up a couple of years ago, and where we're right in the middle of it.
Okay. All right, so let's break this down though. So, okay, Mission R, which I got to ride around and actually tie it all back together.
That was in LA, right?
No. You guys took me and Reggie Watts, who was the first ever guest on The Inevitable, to Spain, to Mallorca. And we
nice.
got to go around with Timo.
April last year,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
Perfect.
And I was shocked, not shocked, but what surprised me about the Mission R was I've been in a lot of like DTM cars as a passenger. I was a passenger in this. The guy driving was pretty good. And a DTM car, braking's incredible, steering's incredible, acceleration slower than a street car because they're just tuned down, and now modern cars are bullet trains, and this was the incredible braking, the incredible steering, and incredible acceleration. So I was like, I get the future of electric racing. I think if and incredibly mechanically noisy because of the whiny straight cut single speed transmission.
Gearbox, yeah.
So I'm familiar with the Mission R's, all-wheel drive, quick little thingy bopper.
Is it 800 horsepower?
Well, basically, the beauty is, let's say, the blueprint of the development behind the GT4 performance was that we said, let's have a look at what we do in customer racing. Let's have a look at what we do actually quite successfully for more than 30 years, and this is one-make racing. And one-make racing, on the one hand, of course, is the organization of the championship. On the other hand, it's also the car that we mainly use for, and that is the 911 GT3 Cup. And we said, let's take the distance of an ordinary one-make series sprint race, which is around 25 to 30 minutes. Let's take the performance of the Cup car,
right?
And let's mirror that with the GT4 performance. Tick. So that box is ticked. So let's say in regular race mode, we're looking at around 650 brake horsepower of that car. The beauty is, if you reduce the distance, or let's say if you reduce the driving time, you can increase the power output.
Right.
Internally, we bring it into party mode, and then party mode is now up to 1200 brake horsepower.
Wow.
And to just basically add to that, the most beautiful thing in between us is we do plenty of taxi rides in the e-performance.
Oh, yeah.
And we normally fix a GoPro in there.
Yeah.
The faces of the passengers when accelerating, I mean, it's insane. It's
Are you doing taxi rides here?
I think we only do demonstration rides here, but from our side, we're always happy to do taxi ride. Let's have a chat with the organizer and see what is possible.
How different is this car than the Mission R, the e-performance? How different?
Well,
besides looks.
No, it's a good question to say. How can we basically, where can we place these cars in comparison? The Mission R was at the stage where it was communicated about in September 2021. Said that's our vision in the future. So this is how we foresee a car to be. And then let's say the elements within this vision from a technological point of view, we took them, put them in the GT4 e-performance and said, let's take that as stated September 2021, but start developing, or let's say start sort of reality proving that car at various events outside in the world. So therefore, Mission R stage was at September 2021. E-performance now is 2 years of development and 2 years of reality check running outside in the world.
So what changed?
Well, basically it's speak to our engineers, and probably for them a car is never finished in terms of development, but it's handling matters, like how well can you sort of dose the traction in at different stages within the corner, how well can you, on the other hand, in terms of handling, can you make sure that the car in terms of the handling complexity is also being reduced for the future, because what we always have to keep in mind, that car is not developed like a 919, for example, for us to do factory racing at Le Mans. What we need to pull out of this project is to say we have to have a reliable car, the performance has to be right, but on the other hand, the handling complexity also has to be fairly simple, because we're talking about, let's say, the business area or the business segment of one-make racing, and there, as a customer racing team, you cannot afford to have at least 6 people running the car, as it still is at the moment, just due to the complexity of the high voltage system, etc., etc.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about.
Real quick. Is it still loud? Does it still have that?
Yes, of
gear
course.
whine?
It's still that single transmission,
So
and
it
it's the same.
Because it's weird for an EV that the noise it's a mechanical noise because of the straight cut gears and it spin fast, and it was interesting.
The beauty of it is, though, it does give you a feeling whether the car is accelerating, whether the car is decelerating, whether the car is really on full load, whether the car is at high speed, and therefore it does fulfill that sort of effect that sound has on all of us.
And I'm bringing that up because a lot of people, including Dodge, and I know Kia and Hyundai are working on this too, they want to do like fake gear shifts on EVs. Right, that's how I feel. But like when I was in this, I'm like, it's a mechanical noise. It's not the whoop 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 spaceship
real.
noise. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's get some context for this, because again, both of you guys have this motorsports background, supporting customer racing, supporting high performance, but also again looking into the future. And you know, this vehicle is a test lab, right? It's a vehicle to try to see what the interest is and hope spawn people's interest in electric cars, electric racing.
Also the future.
The future.
This is what's coming.
And similarly, you guys are trying to market a tire out there that speaks to Michelin's long development of sustainable tires, tires that balance. There's this really interesting challenge with street cars, electric cars, where you want all the performance, but you want all the efficiency too. You want the car to stop and turn as it should, but also have low rolling resistance to improve, to maximize the range.
Yeah, so how do you do that?
But then on the top level, is there interest there? Is there native interest from your customer, your race teams about this future, this electric future of motorsport, of racing? Or?
Well, I think that's what we're trying to figure out together, Porsche and Michelin. What we do, similar to Porsche, using motorsports as the test lab, we're doing the same thing with just on the tire side. We're trying to figure out what can we learn here to put tremendous product to the test. What can you do with materials? Because really that's what it's all about. whether it's a passenger car tire or it's a race tire, what can you do with it, and how durable can you make it, and then the longevity behind that. Electric vehicles are by design are a little bit heavier because of the battery. So what can you do? Because if you have tires wearing out very quickly, that's not very good for the motorsport side, and certainly not on the passenger car side. So that's why we put it to the ultimate test here. We could probably put out a 100% sustainable material tire, but is the performance of the tire going to be where we want it to be? And if the race teams aren't happy with the tire performance, did we really do anything? Yes, we made a sustainable tire, but at the same time, it has poor performance. That's not what Michelin's about. It's about making a sustainable material tire with the highest level possible while maintaining high levels of performance, which again, translatable to our street tires, exactly what we're trying to accomplish with tires made for electric vehicles.
So, excuse me if this is a dumb question. When you mention a tire that has 63% sustainable materials, what are we talking about? What's going in there? What are you replacing, or what's the sources of these sustainable materials?
Yeah. So just think of the most basic of things. Food waste, not food that people are ready to eat, but it's actual food waste, plastic, things like that. That's what we're using to put the sustainable material in. It's finding ways to be more sustainable, but again, not consuming products that we all need as people. It's really finding.
This is called like post-consumer waste.
Yeah.
It's the stuff that is used that comes off of the production cycle, right? Like
exactly.
the odd ends and bits and things. Okay.
Exactly.
And this is replacing fundamentally some of the petroleum products that go.
Correct. That's I'll say the easiest thing to think about of just how much petroleum products go into the tire. That's what you want to try to solve for, because that's honestly probably the dirtiest part of it all.
So Jason, let me ask you, for these tires, like how different will the race tire be from an eventual street tire, which I assume is derived out of what you're learning?
Yes, exactly.
So what's the difference between a race tire and a street tire generally, and then with EVs?
Yeah, so as we're talking about here today, 63% sustainable material rate tire with the GT4E. Our ambition at Michelin is by 2030 to have 40% of our consumer tires, or passenger tires, to be 40% sustainable material rate, and by 2050, 100%. That is our long-term goal. We're not there yet, but in motorsports, we're a bit ahead of the curve because we can test and learn very quickly, having that immediate feedback loop that Oliver talked about earlier of what's working, what's not working. And again, it's not only about having the sustainable material rate percentage, it's also delivering high levels of performance.
But the difference again between a race tire and a street tire is that the race tire lasts a half hour and then you can chuck them, and a street tire is 60,000 miles, right? I mean,
Sure.
is that really the difference?
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's true, with an asterisk, of course. When we talk about what we do in GTP, we're using double stint capable tires there, so they last an hour and a half.
Yes, 90 minutes.
which is tremendous when you think about it.
Oh, I'm aware. I'm just always it's one of those things. As my dad would always say, like, a car is only as good as the tires, and they're on every single car, and I just don't know. I think a lot of people don't know that much about how they're made, like how do you do a tread pattern. I know we could do hours and days just on that, but when you have a situation like with EVs, which is it's an industry-wide shift for everything, is low rolling resistance, like how much of a learning curve was that as a tire manufacturer for Michelin?
Well, I won't be able to speak to specifics as well as some of our engineers.
But generally, we don't need specifics.
But we've been working on low rolling resistance tires since the early 90s. So actually, we think at Michelin we're ahead of the curve because we've been working on it for so long.
And why were you doing that back then?
Because we saw that this was going to be a need over time, that fuel efficiency for vehicles was going to be critically important, and so that's why we started many years ago working on this. And again, it translates to what we're doing today in motorsports, and then what we need for our consumer tires.
Everybody in the gas crisis was inflating their tires up to 70, 80 psi.
Well, also, I mean, there is at the end of the day, there is a certain human morality that comes into play. Like, this party's got to stop at some point. You can't just burn everything,
Right.
So.
Well, I'm struck by it because we're surrounded by all these vintage race cars, and I'm literally staring at like a GTP car with like a big old slick on the back. Have you done like a sustainable, like huge racing slick? Are those out racing or testing?
So yeah, I mean we're testing again with the GT4E, the 63% sustainable material tire. Today, what we run in IMSA in the GTP category, between the wet tire and the dry tire, we're roughly around 30% average, but we're consuming less tires. So for us, we can go racing sustainably with high levels of technology.
Interesting.
By the way, Ed was looking at a Coca-Cola liveried 962 for
Yes.
Porsche fans out there.
Yes,
Pretty
and
cool
Bobby
car.
Aiken's.
Yeah, that's right. But our producer's dad owned his old race car.
It's beautiful. I'm literally staring right at it. But I gotta ask this question, Oliver. Does the motorsport customer, do your colleagues in the Super Cup series, are they really interested in EV racing? Are they like oh man, this looks great, or is it? What's the response like?
Everybody can see what the general development is, and I mean, as you mentioned before, Johnny, I mean, we all have to play our role to make sure that we also initiate a change, because I think it's quite clear that we cannot continue like we did over the past decades in terms of, let's say, energy consumption and also the consumption of resources.
Right.
And therefore everybody is aware that there's definitely a huge need for a change. And I mean, our teams, I mean, you mentioned the Super Cup, but in general, let's talk about our one make series world, where now we have 34 one make series of Porsche running globally. A vast majority of our teams, they do it as their own business, and therefore they have the responsibility to see how can we keep, I mean, we talk a lot about ecological sustainability, but how can we also from an economical point of view keep our businesses running sustainably. And of course, one of the aspects there surely is social responsibility, but on the other hand, it's also let's say a market reality. How much, let's say, partners can you find in order to still support your racing? I mean, how can you sort of make sure that your business still can continue in the future? And then again, I mean, Jason and also mentioned it before, the streetcar development is clearly going in one direction.
Yeah.
So of course, it's natural that also the development on the race car side is very much the same. And therefore, to answer your question, Ed, yes, they're all very interested. I mean, I'd be lying if I say that everybody from the first moment would be absolutely as enthusiastic and emotional about electrically powered racing cars than it would be with the let's say regularly or with the combustion engine ones.
Right.
But the interest is there, and the good thing is, and I mean, we've run the tour or this demonstration tour or the introduction tour of the GT4E performance for 1.5 years now. We've done it globally, really. We started in Europe, are in the US now, and also in parallel are running in Asia. And there is an honest interest and also honest emotions coming up. I mean, you sat in the Mission R, and when you got out of the car, it wasn't less emotional or entertaining, I guess, right?
Timo Bernhardt is his name, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Like that's the guy that did 519 around the Nürburgring in the 919 Evo. So like, dude can drive. So anybody would be emotional. But again, it was funny to watch Reggie, because Reggie, I think, had never actually been on a racetrack. And so he got out and he was like, whoa, like drunk. And I got out and I'm like, wow, like, you know, what I said about the DTM car, like, you know, they always had the braking and the cornering, but the straight line was whatever. And this was like, you know, as quick as any EV is. And then the noise was very emotional. Like, it was just like, oh my God, it's a crazy, it's gears going, gnashing away. So I thought that was very cool. But I was very impressed. The one thing, and you brushed over this a little bit, you know, it takes 6 people to operate the car because of the fast charging. So is based on what I saw with the Mission R, is the e-performance the same type of, like, you got to bring in the infrastructure, the big charging thing that was, I'm assuming diesel powered or something to charge the car?
Well, basically that's part of the development as well. And as I mentioned before, in customer racing, you have plenty of stakeholders in the business, and one of these parties is also circuits. And of course, at some point we'll get to the stage where we have an infrastructure in terms, let's say, a charging infrastructure on site that will more and more, same as the rest of the world, will also be powered with more renewable energy.
Right,
exactly.
cleaner, right.
So therefore,
Yeah.
that's a natural development.
Are there any tracks that have like said okay, we've seen the future. It's there's going to be electric racing. We're spending the money to stick in 400. That was like a 440 volt
for
charging.
us,
It was the high voltage charging, as you know from the Taycan, for example.
Yeah,
as well.
but I'm saying, is there any tracks that have like embraced that, or is it still like,
Well, at the moment, looking at tracks, we do have tracks that, for example, are run by us, like the Porsche Experience Center in Leipzig, for example, because they have the charging units there. But it's same as on the street.
Chicken
I mean,
and egg.
it's
Chicken
gonna
and egg.
absolutely right.
The track near us, Buttonwillow, is installing tons of chargers because they do a lot of that EV racing with Tesla.
The Tesla stuff.
But I want to go back to something you said about, and I appreciate the honesty when you're talking about adoption, interest. Not everybody is on board for various reasons about the future of believe me, Johnny and I face it a lot in the comment section about how much people hate.
Yes,
electric
a very good friend of mine said, like, what a turnoff. Who would ever listen to that podcast?
Let me tell you one thing. At the reaction that surprised and amazed us the most was because previously when people were talking about electric racing vehicles, they always had like a spaceship in mind, for example.
Yeah.
And I tell you, the comment that we heard the most last year at the world premiere of the car in Goodwood was, yeah, but that's not really purely an electric car, isn't it? Because it does look like a Porsche GT race car, and it acts like it, it feels like it,
Sounds
and
like
that's well, it sounds a bit different.
We
always
weird,
say it sounds like a fighter jet when it goes full load down the straight.
It has a real mechanical.
But it doesn't sound like a Nissan Leaf or a
no.
So, but that's what I was saying. I feel like, which is the question. I feel like perception is lagging. And if anybody is going to change minds, it'll be a brand like Porsche, right? Because I remember when the 918 came out, everybody was like, that was like the first hybrid supercar, and people were like, until the numbers started coming out, until people got to drive it, and now it's looking like it's a future classic. It's like a 959 level of collectability.
You work at a very nice company, but this is a cult. I mean, look at we're in the midst of an automotive cult, right? You know what I mean? So and by making a Porsche performance EV, you're going to drag people in like the Mission X sitting right over there. I never thought about an EV before, but damn, I don't want to miss out on the next Porsche hypercar.
Which then drags in, because when we talk from a motorsports perspective, again, it's a test lab, it's an experiment, it gets in front of people early in small volume, it's a good business, it's a good way for a business to sort of see what people are interested in, and then the production vehicle, the volume can come in after that based on the learnings.
I think it's also it's a bit in human nature that sort of if something new is coming up, I mean, you have the people that are a bit more hesitant, you have these that's very strategic talking about. Of course, you have a few of these first movers, but the more, let's say, and the broader a development like this is happening, and also with partnerships that we have with Michelin, for example, I mean, the more we can build up that sort of momentum that eventually will also change then the mindset and will change also the people that are still hesitant about it at the moment.
The unique thing about Porsche, and I think we're living in this moment where people are kind of getting it, is Porsche has tried. It's again 75th year. We're celebrating their anniversary, their diamond anniversary, and you look back and they've done some wild stuff. They've done some experimental vehicles. They've done some like kind of crazy shifts, and at each moment people were like, "Wow, that's not true to the brand. This is not." And then now, a lot of those are collectibles, right?
Oh, all of them.
Think of there's like a 912. People are looking at 924, 944 values. They're starting to shoot up.
Yeah,
it's like mind blowing.
And in a way, quite frankly speaking, it's a bloody good motivation, because the more people say, "Nah, it's not possible. Leave us alone with that," the more it's motivation for us to say, "And we prove you wrong."
It makes the haters pay attention to what you're doing next, because then they're like, "Oh, dude, I missed out the first 3 times. Let me pay attention."
I found years ago. I found I think it was MotorTrend. It was like our coverage of the 1963, I want to say it was the Paris Motor Show, when the 901, so the 911
Back then,
debuted. And our take was like, oh man, Porsche's lost the plot. Too many seats, it's too fat. Like 356 is the way to go. They've totally lost it. And that was the initial media reaction. So yeah, you're right. Anything, two things. Anything, if you don't understand it, you're afraid of it. That's human nature. And then two, man, current gasoline-powered cars are great. They're absolutely incredible. Why would I want to give that up? Like, if you have a GT2 RS, the last thing you want is to not be able to drive it for whatever reason, and you're scared. And then, so I get all that, and I like, again, the Mission R, I assumed to be pretty good, but when I got out, I was like, all right, like, the future of electric
You don't need to worry about it. It's going to be fun and it's going to be great.
It's pretty good. You got to charge a little quicker or get a bigger battery or light or something. But aside from that,
you need to start somewhere.
Problem,
in all fairness, because sorry to jump in there again,
No.
There are two ways to approach a new project and two ways to approach, let's say, breaking new ground. One is, okay, we'll never get it done, or the other is, for sure, let's start doing it. For sure there'll be hurdles, for sure there'll be setbacks, for sure there'll be plenty of people that tell you it's never going to be possible. But hey, if you don't start, if you don't make the first step, you'll never get anywhere.
Right.
So it's just really as simple as that, I guess.
So I want to ask Jason kind of a similar question, because when on your side of the business, on your side of the partnership, right? Michelin has been supporting Porsche 50 plus years now, right?
Over 50 years.
Over 50 years of a 75-year company history. How do you approach this EV customer? What is like your number one message or strategy for them when they're looking at, hey, I have this car, I have this high performance car. It probably came on Michelin's, or I need to change tires on it, and I'm looking at making a replacement. What's the message you want to get out to them about the product and the partnership?
Well, I would say it starts with a couple of things. One, we need to understand our consumer in general and what they're looking for out of the tire. And not every consumer is the same, so you're trying to solve for different needs of each consumer. Some, they want maximum performance and kind of fun to drive, not necessarily as concerned with the longevity of things. But then you have the other side of it, the consumers that want the longevity, and they're willing to sacrifice some of the performance of the tire. So really understanding just the consumer in general and where their head is at, that's really important. But then the second point is that all of our tires are EV ready today.
Okay.
We are prepared with the technologies that we've been working on for many years. They're already there. And so now we're not thinking we have to market or brand tires necessarily unique to EV, because our tires are EV ready today.
Jason, so with the e-Performance, I assume you developed a tire for the spec race?
Correct.
So what's the process? I'm always fascinated by this. Like, you buy a new car today and it's like, like if you get keeping with Porsche, you get a GT3, it's got Cup 2 R N1. All right, so when you go to develop an N1, which is tied to that vehicle, what's the process of developing a tire for a car? Like, can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so it's really with the partnership such as Porsche and others, where we work to understand what they're trying to solve for, what they're looking for out of their vehicle. And so there's a whole homologation process, and it can be a long process. And so really starts with an N0, then N1, if we make some updates to the tire, or N2, N3, N4, etc. So really it's understanding what they're trying to do.
But are you doing this like with computer modeling? Is it guys with beakers pouring chemicals?
No, it's like, isn't it like a spec sheet? Like one of the Porsche engineers says, hey, the race is going to be this long. It's going to have this kind of pit stops. There's going to be, this amount of
let him answer.
Temperature delta.
I don't want to hear your thoughts.
Can you do this? And the guy goes, yeah, we can do that. Or
well, on a race tire, it's a bit different. That more, I would say, more on the street car side, we're using more of that standard approach. On the motorsport side of the house, we're trying to again get the maximum amount of performance out of the vehicle, out of the tire. And then of course we need to get that homologated with the sanctioning body as well.
So what's the process look like?
It's a bit of computer simulation.
Okay.
As well as objective and subjective data that we get from the drivers.
And the drivers in your proving grounds who we're going to talk to next.
Yeah. So drivers proving ground, but then also the actual race teams. Yeah, working with Porsche, Penske, and working with them and the entire development around the GTP tire, or of course with the 63% sustainable material rate with the GT4E. We're working together to make sure that they're getting what they need out of their car, and we can do that on the tire side.
And what's the development time? Like, hey, we're going to do this. Oliver calls you, hi, Jason, we're doing this car. How long?
It can take years, but it also can move very quickly. Of course, resources are available to put all the dedication behind something. Things can happen really quickly, but...
How fast is really quick?
So it can be 6 months to a year.
Okay.
I would say that's probably normal time frame, but could you pull it up quicker? Who knows? It all depends on how much resource you're willing to put behind something.
Okay. So let's shift gears here a little bit, just because there is so much going on. I just saw Justin Bell walk by. Let's talk about this event. What are you guys, after you get all the business stuff, after you get all your customers, and you got 5 minutes to walk around, what are you going to go? What are you interested in seeing, smelling, hearing first? And we'll go to Oliver. What's like? I know you saw the list of VIPs who are coming here, and probably some yard-long list of cars that are here. What's exciting to you?
Where am I supposed to start?
Right.
I mean, as I mentioned before, you walk in here and it's not even in a candy store. It's I don't know. Bring that even
candy
further.
Factory, yeah.
Exactly. Bring that even further to the extreme. No, I mean, to be honest, what I enjoy so much, or what is one of the privileges that I also have in my role, is to be able to be at these events and at some point just basically forget all my corporate responsibilities and just be a car fan again. And then also, very openly speaking about myself, just realize again what a privilege it is to be working for the brand when you see all these different cars, and most importantly, when you see all of our customers that basically made us who we are today. Because without them buying our cars, without them loving the cars, without them racing our cars, no matter how old a car is, and the emotion that they bring in, that's the end of the day what makes a difference. And that's exactly below the line the kind of spirit that I'm really looking forward to be enjoying.
You should
here.
be a life coach. What I'm hearing is it's gratitude. He's saying I need you to wake up every day and just be grateful. And I love it. That's awesome.
Life could be a lot worse.
Yeah. Jason, what are you looking forward to here?
Yeah. So as I've been to Laguna Seca before, this is certainly my first Rennsport. So I'm just going to be walking around when we're not racing on track and supporting that activity, just taking it all in. A little bit different. I look at tires, right? So who's on Michelin, who's not on Michelin, and I'm a tire guy.
Those good years over there. Yeah. But are you secretly also like, where's the Corvettes? We did some really good work on the.
I love them all.
That's cool.
It's just really a great opportunity.
We should mention too. We're in the Tag Heuer tent,
Carrera Cup tent.
And it's stuffed with race cars. But like, there's to me the most special one. There's Porsche's first ever race car, the 356 over there, and there is a special connection between Porsche and California, because the thing got, I think it was like second in its class at Le Mans, showed everyone, hey, there's this new manufacturer, they're pretty good. But then it came to California,
right,
and Johnny von Neumann, and won a ton of races. And California put Porsche on the map as much as anything else. And it is this kind of...
Oh, agree, disagree.
Oh, yeah.
No, plus I think when it comes to, let's say, obviously being German, and I haven't spent that much time in the US, but my feeling from an outside point of view has always been that California is also one of the states in the US that is sort of always more a little bit at the forefront of development, at the forefront also when it comes to, let's say, establishing new mindsets. I'm not only talking about Silicon Valley, but also historically driven. And therefore, again, I think it fits so well for us to be here and also sort of stir up that kind of innovation sort of feeling again.
Well, we kind of got there, but let me ask you again, and apologies to Jason because we're focusing on Oliver because he's never been here. But you're German, Johnny said it, and you kind of said it. When you think of the United States, you think of California, right? This is kind of the front runner. When you think of Porsche, United States, California, what vehicle do you think of? Which in the lineup is like, oh, that's the one that really, like...
Definitely one with an open roof so I can cruise by the sea.
So any of the Spiders.
But what I was thinking was like that first gasoline-powered race car, like, there will be the first electric Porsche race car. Will one day kind of probably be displayed next to that at Rennsport 39.
Let me tell you about one thing, which was actually beautiful, also to kind of bring the ends together in terms of the story again. When we had the e-performance at the 75-year celebration at Hockenheim, we were placed in the paddock right next to the historical Cup cars that basically started running in the Carrera Cup Deutschland and the Super Cup in the beginning of the 90s. And it was just beautiful because you could basically put that story again put that story together exactly as you mentioned it. At some point, the car will be here, just in a line of all the other cars, just to be the first one of its kind again. But in the future, it's going to be as accepted and as cherished as all the rest. So
interesting. Yeah, that's. It's one of those things. Like, I know you're right, logically, emotionally, like. I don't know.
But the good thing is when we sit together here again at the next Rennsport or the next one afterwards, we'll think back about 2023 when we spoke about it and we said, yeah, seems like we're right.
Well, at the 100th anniversary of Porsche, if we're still here.
You joke, but I was actually thinking about that because we both have young kids. I was just thinking, my son's 2.5. I'm like, this is 75th anniversary. I mean, I hope I'm still around. I should be. I'm only 47. But, my kid would be 27. He'd be like the perfect age to come back for the Porsche's 100th anniversary.
Sure.
Wherever that is. But
yeah.
We can close out on that. The next 75 years is probably too far to talk about. But, you mentioned 2050, I think.
2050.
Yeah. So that's carbon neutral or what's that statement?
So by 2050, 100% of our passenger car tires will be sustainable material tires.
Okay.
By 2030, 40%. So we're working towards those ambitions and goals. Starting with motorsports, we can accelerate that a bit, but long term, getting that into our passenger tires is critically important.
When are we going to see the airless tires, the ones that have the honeycomb weave and you can roll over anything?
Yeah,
is that coming?
So there's a project. It was announced a few years back. This one happens to be with GM. Sorry, Oliver. But
he looks actually mad. That was
no. That's my friendly face.
Who's GM? I don't understand. GM. What's that? Anyways.
But on their cruise project, the Uptis tire, which is a airless tire project that we've been working on with them.
Okay. I look forward to that. And then Oliver, for you, what are some maybe key moments in the future we should look out for from a e-performance?
Well, I mean, let's put it like this: when you look at the timeline, that imagine at the moment we're on the left side of it, where we started to introduce that car to the public and to our various stakeholders, and the end of this timeline will be the introduction and the sales of the first battery electric vehicle to our customers. And
first two-door.
No, sorry, first
GT
race car.
I'm
talking about the e-performance. And what the interesting part is coming up now, and that's exactly the transition phase in between, where, let's say, with developing a successor prototype of the GT4 e-performance, it's going to be about keeping the performance output, keeping that level, but on the other hand, to reduce the handling complexity and to also start that education process again together with our partners to say, when can we start giving that new prototype in the hands of our customer racing teams? When can we have the first drivers in the car? When can we have, let's say, the first competition kind of event? And these are the next steps coming up.
How long is the GT4 e-performance tour to continue?
Well, it's still gonna run until spring 24. So basically, this is the final stop that we have in the US. In 2 weeks, we'll be in Tokyo, introducing the other prototype, because we have two in the world, and the other prototype is on its way. It was in Singapore 2 weeks ago. It'll be in Tokyo in 2 weeks. We'll introduce it there at the second anniversary of the Experience Center over there, and then we'll have a few more events running in Europe. We're planning to ideally also do something in the snow again in December, because talking about emotions, that's also really good fun.
Right.
and then beginning of 24 we'll look at Australia to have to be serving events down there.
Oh, nice. And
Now, in terms of mileage or in terms of how to say collecting miles, still have a few flights ahead.
That's
of me,
all.
I guess.
And you're at every single one of those?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I'm responsible to, let's say, introduce the concept together with the colleagues of the
Are you
engineering
Lufthansa?
department.
Is that your
Starline.
Starline? Yeah, woo!
All
All
right,
right.
So
Invite us to the lounge, please. You get all of us in.
gotta ask, because Porsche recently said, hey, 911 is going to have a gas engine, but going forward, everything else is going to have a battery. When do I assume that e-performance is out of ISOC?
Flacht, yeah, exactly. So basically, yeah.
So we
Made in Flacht.
We know that the guys that work on the race cars in Flacht also build the customer cars that come out of Flacht. When do consumers start to see the electric Cayman, for lack of a better name?
Well, basically, it's the perfect question to actually wrap up this timeline, because when you look at how customer racing, especially in the one-make world, works today, you always have on the race car side, you have the GT3 Cup, and on the street side, you have the GT3 or the GT3 RS. And it can only work like this because you do need the street car in order to share development costs.
Right.
You do need the street car in order to reduce the running costs when it comes to parts, and overall make the business viable for our team. So everybody in the background is working full speed on that project. So it's going to be introduced in parallel in the near future. I mean, don't
So
lock me
soon.
down to a
Oliver
number
Schwab
of years.
says soon.
Yes.
Yes.
You can see the parallel. You can
So
see
let's-
the parallel.
Jason, is he lying?
We shall see.
Soon's flexible.
Cool. All right.
Awesome.
Well, this is great.
Well, yeah, this was awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for taking time out of your day. This is day one of Rennsport. You guys got up early, got here to the track. As you saw during, and I should have turned here to talk to everybody, as you saw in the podcast, many, many more people, so I'm walking through our shot, have now arrived because this event is on and popping, and you guys have lots of things to do. So I want to thank you for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Oliver.
Jason Anzalone, Director of Michelin Motorsports North America.
Ed,
Oliver Schwab, thank you so much. He is the project lead for Porsche GT4 e-Performance Tour.
Not
Thank you.
touring.
vielen Dank.
Vielen
a
Dank.
pleasure.
guys.
Thank you.
Vielen Dank.
Okay, so that was Jason Anzalone from Michelin Motorsports North America and Oliver Schwab from Porsche. And next up, you're going to hear Ed Gliss, who is the product category manager for Michelin North America.
Thank you. Ed Gliss, OE product manager, Michelin. Did I get that correct?
Close enough. Product marketing for Michelin, yeah.
Product marketing for Michelin. And this is your first time at Laguna Seca? No.
Third time.
Third time.
Oh, okay. Nice.
First time at a Rennsport.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. And you're excited?
Absolutely. Walking through the paddock this morning, I was so distracted, but happy to be here nonetheless.
Now, are you looking at cars or looking at tires?
Oh, I'm spoiled. I'm ruined forever. Even at stoplights and things, I can't help but look to the car next to me.
Okay.
And parking lot inspections, like I'm ruined.
And are you judgy? You're like, oh, that 917's on Goodyear. Like,
Well, let me ask you. Actually, I dated somebody who worked at a tire company many years ago, and I learned all about how big tire companies send like dozens of interns or junior staffers through like the parking lots, like at major events with like clipboards. And is that true? Do you do that? Have you
I mean,
done
I've
that?
never done like parking lots, but for sure I've taken like a track days and things. We'll take inventory of tire quantities, dimensions, and we'll use that to make sure that we've got good market coverage. So right now, recently, you can see a lot of the new vehicles being launched have larger and larger rim sizes. We need to plan ahead and evolve with that. But likewise, we can't forget some of the historics like we see kind of in this area. So that's either served with our vintage tire portfolio or just making sure we continue to make 17s and 18s because they're not extinct.
But it's funny, yeah, if you walk around here, like, 15s, 16s, a couple 14s, like, they're kind of extinct, right? I mean,
Yeah, those are getting fewer and fewer market options for sure.
Yeah,
Right.
They'll return. When you do that, and this is I'm nerding out here. When you do these kinds of surveys of owners and just making sure you have good market coverage, are you literally, how far do you, obviously, make, model, are you doing like you're checking all the boxes, like the size and the the profile and all that?
Yeah, I mean, of course, like dimension, overall rim seat, aspect ratio, kind of that balance of things is important. So knowing like a Porsche generally has a smaller front tire than a rear tire, and sometimes they can be quite narrow. And so just making sure you've got that coverage, and then the whole vehicle market, like we want to try and be represented and let people have the opportunity to purchase our products.
Okay. I mean, we've already gone way off script here. I'm just gonna keep asking you crazy questions.
Well, I got
about
one.
product marketing.
Yeah, no.
Where does Michelin feel like they need to like really go hard after? Like maybe other competitors are encroaching. Is there a off-road, just by category? Is there like a specific area where you're like, ooh, we need to get on it?
I wouldn't say there's an area that we feel like we're missing, but to kind of address it and make sure everyone's on the same page. Michelin is the parent company to BF Goodrich,
right?
So from an off-road standpoint, we've
You're
got a
covered
really
pretty
strong.
well. Yeah. So let me ask you this, just real basic. What's one thing that you wish the public at large knew about tires or thought about with tires that we just simply don't?
I've got a mechanical engineering background. I've worked for Michelin for nearly 13 years. I did a stint 9 years as a test driver. So, I've got a lot of perspectives, but I do also recognize that the general consumer might not be as passionate about tires as me or either you guys.
Yeah.
And so it's, a lot of it boils down to just keeping in mind safety. So it's the tread depth, it's the routine inflation pressure monitoring. Just as a rule of thumb, your tire pressure will fluctuate 1 psi for a 10-degree Fahrenheit swing. So for any of those people who live in a climate or a region that has, your typical 4 seasons, that can be 5 to 6 psi even if you've got no leaks or issues or punctures. And so over the progression of years, like you could be severely underinflated if you're not paying attention.
But I mean, I would say the number of consumers who do that is about 0, right? I mean, it's
exactly. That's why it's unfortunately low. But
yeah.
It's performance, it's wear. So like tire lifespan, and that a lot of people don't get excited to necessarily purchase tires, but that routine maintenance, or whether you get your vehicle checkups or just look at your TPMS on the display to see if it's within spec.
Tire pressure monitoring system. Just a little light that comes on. Yeah, it looks like a flat
tire.
Yeah, exactly. All right, cool. What are you doing here?
So obviously I'm ecstatic to be here both personally and professionally. Michelin is proud to be represented here at Rennsport Reunion 7. Across the Porsche OE lineup, Michelin has a lot of presence on their portfolio, and they're an esteemed partner with an iconic brand, so it's great to both be present here on their current portfolio.
Right.
There's lots of GT cars giving thrill rides throughout the weekend, so we've got our Cup 2 products being highlighted, and then just excited to engage with consumers, get the product feedback and be represented.
Okay. And that's so the GT3. The standard equipment is the Cup 2 R N1. Is that the
N0?
N0
to kick off. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So you make a good point though, that as products evolve or iterate over the years, they will index. So it starts N0. And then the next generation will be N1, and so that way you
but
can...
N1s are out, right?
No, N0 to start.
Oh, so the N1's not on sale yet? Doesn't...
The Cup 2 that launched on the vehicle is an N0.
Okay, but if I went to order a new tire now...
Also would be N0.
It's still 0. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Somebody told me they put N1s on their car. I was like, oh, cool.
For a previous generation, like a 991, they might have.
I see. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay. I got you. So, okay. Right.
So... let's talk a little bit about that development. We just talked to your colleague Jason Anzalone. Your job is a little bit different because you're not so motorsports focused. But you mentioned it. You spent 9 years as a test driver, specifically testing what?
So there's 2 main sectors of tire development. So there's the replacement market and there's original equipment. And so replacement market, let's just pick the pickup truck segment, right? So there's an F-150, there's a Ram, and there's a Silverado. We've got to have products in the replacement market sector that will work well on all 3 of those vehicles.
Right.
And so that's testing across a broad range, which might also fit an Expedition and a Yukon and et cetera. So that's the replacement market development, and Michelin's made a really conscious effort over the past couple of years to try and simplify our portfolio, going back to that point, like, hey, not everybody's necessarily as passionate and nerdy about tires as we are. So that's like really think of like the Defender product lineup. And so that's the Defender LTX MS2. So that would be one sector of tire development. So
specifically large SUV and pickup truck.
Well, just generally speaking, if you purchase a car
Defender.
secondhand and it needs tires, what are your options?
Yep.
The other option is the original equipment avenue, and that's what cars are delivered on the showroom.
Got it.
So kind of two sectors. Those are specialized tires that would be for a specific product. And we talked about it a little bit with the markings. So the N spec obviously denotes Porsche. AO is going to be Audi. TPC spec is Chevy's spec. So each of those make it easily recognizable to the consumer if they want to maintain and the personality of their vehicle. You buy that original equipment tire, and it's been custom tuned to deliver the performance.
How does a Porsche end up as a N as their signifier, and Audi AO I kind of maybe get, and then how do you get TPC to Chevy? Like what's the code mean?
You're putting me on the spot. So
or give me one. Give me a good example of one where it kind of makes sense, or it makes no sense.
Generally, like AO is Audi original.
Okay. And N is Nürburgring. Like what does the N mean?
I think there's been some that was an inspiration for the N. Like TPC is tire performance criteria, and it just happens to be.
That's probably what Chevy uses.
That's what GM uses.
GM uses. Okay.
FP is Ford performance. So there's a whole decoder that we've got on the Michelin Man website. But
yes.
What is nice is it makes it plainly visible to the consumer because this is a marking that is engraved on the sidewall of the tire, and you can see it. Star spec BMW.
What's Toyota?
Toyota does not have a marking to date.
Huh?
So let's go with those markings though. So how deep into car categories do they go? Like, for instance, I know the M3. There's a PS4 that was, it's original equipment to the M3. Does 3 Series just get a generic tire, or is there a?
No. Contrary to popular belief, all levels of car have an original equipment tire. Now, there are certain cases where for niche markets, they might decide to take what's called like an off-the-shelf tire, which would be that replacement market tire that we talked about earlier. But, all your basic four-door sedan still has an OE-tuned tire.
So, in other words, and I'm grossly simplifying for the sake of a podcast, if you have a Corolla and a Civic, they would, in theory, have OE tires. They would go like even something that
designed
basic,
for them, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And all original equipments, I mean, we treat them the same. Obviously, the performance side of things is easier to kind of, make your mark and show your actual marking on the sidewall. That makes it really easy to identify. But no, all the same. Like there's lots of development that goes into all makes and models.
But so let's say I buy one of those cars, a Civic or a Corolla, and I bought it new. It came with your OE tire on it, and then I get a flat or it wears out, and I want to replace it. I want to replace the exact same tire. Can I get that OE tire? Do I have to go to the dealer for that, or if I went to like Discount Tire or something, are they going to sell me the replacement and it's a different tire?
Both options should result in you being able to purchase the original equipment tire.
Oh, okay.
And so, if you use either Discount Tire, Tire Rack, you can search by year, make, and model, or the Michelin Man website, same thing. And the first result you can filter on for original equipment.
So how depressing is it to you? And I get depressed when I see this. I don't even know anything about tires, but like somebody has a car, a performance car, and they're like, yeah, I just went to Costco and like I got these things and I just stuck them on there.
Black, round, no moving
parts.
What's
the difference?
Holds,
like how
personally,
how depressed do you get when that happens?
That's a blow right to the heart. With 9 years of my career being spent as a test driver, like that was my job day in and day out.
I know so many people who do that. I'm like, you have a not really Porsches, but like you have an M3. Why are you?
It's all the same.
It's cheap, man. Like it's just like and I put 89 in it. It's just like, what are you doing?
Yeah. So, let's talk about that. As in your role as a test driver, like, so you were talking about how you developed these different tire lines. Did you do a lot of competitive analysis of tires?
Yeah, for sure. So there's product benchmarking for things that are in market. You can pick a segment, whether that's off-road, and that would generally foots on the BF Goodrich side of things, or performance, so Pilot Sport 4S and competitors. or just your run-of-the-mill all-season tire. So different sectors, and then you pick 5 or 6 competitors, and you go ahead and benchmark. And generally that would consist of noise, comfort, wet, handling, dry handling, and winter or snow testing.
What would be the most egregious, and you don't have to name, but by all means name names if you like, but like the difference between like the best tire, let's say it's your tire, and like the absolute worst that you've ever benchmarked, and in what category is it? It's like, oh my God, it's like no traction, the braking sucks, the noise was terrible, it like blew up on you, or like what do you have any funny stories?
I don't know that I've got a particularly funny story, but the rule of thumb, like you get what you pay for, is definitely a good one, right?
Okay.
Like if you're budget shopping, if you can buy 3 get 1 free, like do so at your own risk. Like that's
Okay.
But where does it show up most? In the noise? The
wet traction. Okay, so that's like a really easy one to detect from a testing standpoint. So wet braking or just wet handling.
Yeah.
Right?
Really easy.
Chronic understeer suddenly.
If you owned those tires and had them for a duration, you're likely to experience poor uniformity, which will then result in
they wear differently,
uneven
right?
wear. So then you get cupping and all sorts of things, and likely poor tread life. So sure, maybe you got 4 tires for $279, but you're buying them every 18 months. So should you have just spent $600 and been good for 4.5 years, 5 years?
That sounds like you're asking people to engage in long-term planning and strategy.
Right.
Yeah, we're not, humans as a species aren't so good at that.
Right. And then when you test, what are your reference vehicles for testing? Do you guys hey, are they awesome?
Yeah, well, that was what I was trying to allude to. So from a replacement market standpoint, you've got to have a diverse portfolio that represents sort of the market, right? So we talked about the pickup truck segment. And so that's a range of full-size pickup trucks and SUVs that you'd want to test on. For sports cars, same thing. You kind of want to do a range. Even Pilot Sport 4S, you're going to want to make sure you account for front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive platforms, and then horsepower ranges across those.
So how many cars a year does Michelin buy?
Or borrow? They buy or borrow?
It's a mix. And so it's important to recognize, like, Michelin's headquartered in France, and so we've got 2 main development zones. Generally, European original equipment development is done in Europe, just logistically, and then domestic product is done here in North America. So we can kind of
down in South Carolina.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you go to? Have you been to France?
I have been a few times. Yeah.
How's your French?
Not good.
Okay.
No. C'est dommage.
So then.
But how many? But like so basically,
Yeah,
if we showed up at
we've been to the proving ground.
We've been to the proving ground, but we were shown a slice. Like we showed up
it's
and
huge.
saw.
It's like massive.
But
of 4,000 acres.
Yeah.
So if we saw like the fleet storage, like how many vehicles are there at
any given time?
Yeah. Generally, we've got like 50 to 60.
Oh, but that's like one of our of the year events. Like it's not massive.
Yeah, but they own or
no,
for a long time.
Hey, but 4,000 acres, you could stuff a lot of cars. You know.
And, there's opportunities where we'll rent vehicles.
Got it.
So sometimes we're doing a specific development, and there's not really the business case to own it for, many years. But, hey, we need it for 6 months, so let's do a long-term rental or some scenarios like that.
All right, so walk me through, because I'm always fascinated by this. We've been talking about spec tires, right? So, all right, I got it's the 992.2 GT3, all right? We're going to develop a tire for this car. What's the process?
So you have really honed in on like one of the most complex examples you can have.
Good.
So there's original equipment development.
We want you to work for your free bottle of water.
Right. With a square fitment, meaning the same size tire front and rear.
Okay.
That's the easiest case, right? So you've got a fixed tire pressure, say 35 psi, and the same tire size, whatever.
And this is different widths, different heights. The GT3 is going to have 21s in the rear, 20s up front, skinny in the front, real fat in the rear.
Yep, and so keep in mind there's over 100 components in a tire, all tunable.
What do you mean?
There's
name 3.
Tread depth.
No,
okay, well that's a tuning lever.
Okay. So there's 100 levers that you can pull on.
At a minimum, yeah.
At a minimum.
Yep.
Name 2 more.
Okay, so you've got your tread depth, you've got your belt, you have your belt diameter, you've got your belt angle, you've got carcass tension, you've got
carcass tension. That's a good name for a death metal band. I think that's a
carcass tension.
What is carcass tension? We can stop with carcass. What is that?
Oh well, with the
I don't. I'm asking.
the fabric that's inside the tire.
Okay.
You can change how tightly it's wound. So it could fight centrifugation at high rates of speed.
And so when you say fabric, you mean the cords. I mean, I'm showing my cords.
Yep.
That's a carcass, and there's a tension. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And he mentioned centrifugation. So the faster it spins, the more the tire is going to want to sort of balloon outwards.
Yep.
And so the higher the tension you have on it, the less likely you're to do that. But then that would influence ride, right?
Exactly. So there's all sorts of tuning levers. And so taking a step back, granted, I didn't personally do the development for the Porsche, but I'm aware of the process. So Porsche has approached Michelin France, and said, hey, we're looking for a tire for the 992 GT3. These are our performance specs. This is our Nürburgring lap time expectation. This is our wet lap, and everything's done relative to a reference. So in this case, it was probably the 991 GT3, where they're like...
Or 992.1. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. We're really splitting the hairs.
Hey, man, we're at Rennsport.
You're right. So anyways, that would be the reference, and they'd say, hey, we want to find half a second of dry lap time at this track, and 3/4 of a second here, and we wanted to have dry braking 10 foot shorter.
Okay, so now it's day one, let's say, of like physical testing. Do you show up with the size? Do you know the size of the tires? Like, do they say we're gonna?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many do you show up with, like different tread patterns? How many tires do you start with? Physical testing as a test driver.
So as this conversation would have played out, we would have said, all right, this is going to be our Cup 2 lineup, knowing that we've got a Cup 2 and a Cup 2R, but the general debut is on the Cup 2. So we identified that. We know what the reference tire is, so we showed up day one of testing with the reference tire, the 992.1 option.
So reference tire, yeah.
And then we had 3 new fronts and 3 new rears, so you have reference and you have ABC front, and reference rear ABC. So the important thing is, in that case, you've got to select one axle to keep fixed and screen through everything. So you've probably at this point said, okay, we're going to go ahead and hold the front consistent. We're going to do the reference on the front axle. Then you do reference rear, reference ABC on the rear. Pick a one that you like, but maybe not the strongest. Say it was C. So you like rear C. You put rear C on the axle, you got to screen through all the fronts.
Okay.
And so you've got all these different permutations. And you're like, well, here's on-center steering. Here's,
All right, I call baloney. I call total baloney. Like, let's be honest. Yeah. As the day goes on, can't really tell anymore. Or no, your test drivers absolutely can split those hairs. Like, all right, now.
Real quick, just to stick with it. So you're on rear C. And you put on front A, you like front A, but then do you then go back and let's just check out rear B to see if...
Oh, absolutely.
So this is a very long... And do you ever have like A, B, C, D, and E? Do you ever...
Yeah, so factually speaking, for the GT3 RS, this is how the development process went. So it was, there's 16 permutations there that you have to deal with to test all the different configurations. You pick a preferred, say it's, B front, C rear. The tire designer...
Is it real quick? Is this one guy, or do you have a committee of people that say...
So there's a Michelin test driver who partners with Porsche's test driver.
Two people.
At a minimum.
At a minimum. Okay.
And so generally, because each OE has...
Big decision.
Each OE has a personality.
Right.
And so you end up with an assignment, and you stick with those for the duration of your career, or some set amount of time, because you need to be calibrated to the Porsche DNA.
You're a Michelin employee, but you're familiar with the Porsche's wants and needs and desires.
How many days, weeks, months does this take? Is it days? Is it weeks?
Everyone's different. So generally, most joint tests occur 3 to 5 days, so they'll take a week. You'll screen through. Again, it's Friday. You're saying B and C is the direction we want to go in. The tire designer knows that tire recipe. B and C become the new reference, and then they make D, E, F, front and rear, and you rinse and repeat, a few months later. Then you pick a new favorite, or maybe that was the wrong direction and BC stays where it is and you do another design loop. And then at some point, the criteria are met.
And so how many of those rounds, like normal case scenario, worst case scenario, like how many iterations, rounds of testing would you go through?
Sure. So it totally depends on the customer's expectations and what level of detail they want to get to. But generally 2 to 3 submissions is kind of the average across all different manufacturers.
And as I heard of one car that took 7, it was not Michelin's, but is 7 like totally abnormal? or happens once in a while?
It could happen.
Okay.
Especially for a halo car, if they're really trying to meet a particular
Wasn't
criteria.
a halo, it was just an important tire. Yeah.
Now, we're kind of missing a little bit here. What are you driving on? What surfaces? Are you doing like, is it a racetrack? It's a winding track, just a bunch of turns? Is it an oval? Is it one of these special surfaces? Is it all of them?
Yes, it's all of them.
Oh, boy.
No, that's a great question. So tell us all the different things you do with A, B, and C.
Yeah, so one of the things that's important is depending on the OE, you might decide whether the front or the rear axle is the most crucial, right? And so that can change based on, powertrain configurations, just overall chassis DNA. And so it's important that's where you decide which axle to fix, and you might not necessarily want to pick the strongest tire because it would make everything else feel numb. So you're kind of like on the stronger side, but not the strongest, and that way you can get a good read. And then you kind of, maybe it's generally, exclusively, like test drivers conduct this in the dark. I don't ever look at tire constructions beforehand, right? I don't want to know. I don't want to know what the tire designer did. I want to try and find it out myself, tell you what works best with the vehicle, and then we move forward.
But like when you're selecting, C, rear C, I think Ed's question was, do you like head out on a high-speed oval? And then come back and look at B, or do you do an oval?
Or just
then the
let's
track,
bring it down. Can you describe some of the more popular testing services on your proving grounds? Like, what are they?
Yeah, so generally it would ramp up in levels of aggression. So just from a tire usage standpoint, first thing you'd start through and screen is just general like steering feel, linearity, sublimit, on center feel, like lane keeping, just the finer details, and you'd make a ranking. And this is before you're doing any big slides or anything like that. So then you've got your sort of a ranking there. Then you cascade to like a wet handling, making sure you've got a suitable balance for the vehicle.
So wait, so that first test would be on an oval or like a street course or
like a big VDA?
So at the Lawrence Proving Grounds, Michelin's Proving Grounds in South Carolina, it's our track 1, which is essentially an oval.
Okay. And then the wet would be on a wet skid pad, like a big.
So ours is a wet handling track. Michelin uses wet handling tracks. Skid pads are an option. We've got a half-mile polished concrete skid pad at
polished
Lawrence.
concrete. Do you have that? Mercedes had a big plastic thing that they were using?
They got the epoxy surface, I think, right? Yeah,
it's pretty cool. Okay, mimics ice apparently. And then you have, I assume, was like special services, like speed bump and.
Yep. So that's the noise and comfort loop.
Okay.
And so again, that kind of is dictated on the priorities for the fitment. And so GT3 RS may or may not have placed noise and comfort as priority 1.
Probably may not.
So, so that dictates kind of what you're focusing on.
Sure.
If it's pure lap time, you can uncover on-center feel, linearity, corner placement, all of those criteria on a track.
What's the speed limit on your fastest track at Lawrence Proving Grounds?
As long as you have a helmet on and proper safety equipment, there
Love
isn't one.
it.
Yeah, baby. But what is
that's like what I miss.
what are the dimensions? That's obviously a high-speed oval.
So ours isn't like a typical oval, and so generally that one would be 100 miles an hour.
Okay,
because it's an active test track with other testing going on, and so our dedicated handling track would have, as fast as you can go.
How big is the oval in miles?
2.3.
Oh, okay.
And then how long and how many turns on the test track? That handling track you're talking about?
We run a couple different configurations. The normal long one is 10.
10 turns?
And is it a racetrack or is it like a winding road type thing?
So it's our racetrack, but it's not open to the public.
No. What I mean is it you don't have curbing or do you have curbing?
There is curbing.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yep.
How who's got the fastest lap time and why isn't it you? No comment?
Well, I just met. I can't tell all my secrets.
Right.
All right. What's the coolest car you've tested at the Lawrence Proving Grounds?
Are you going to limit me to the Proving Grounds?
I don't know. Okay, cool.
Well, I was going to say, when do you then actually take the cars, or where do you take the cars? And I assume you don't just do it on a proving ground. You go out in the real world at some point to drive them?
It's a mix. So by and large, from a tire development standpoint and that level of responsibility, that's usually done in a proving ground settings.
Oh, okay.
It would be the original equipment, like the car company, who would kind of own that. What are the real world characteristics?
I got it.
And so in these cases, these are generally one-of-one prototypes and things like that. So Porsche brings the car in this example to the joint test. You use it for the week. They take it back with them.
Okay, so coolest car you've ever tested? And coolest Porsche you've ever tested, then coolest car you've ever tested.
Yeah, so unfortunately, due to geography, like I don't have as much Porsche experience as I would have preferred.
So what Corvette?
The new Z06 is certainly spicy. That's
nice.
an animal.
Yeah, that is a nice car.
Any other exotics?
I mean, I think just generally, like, we all share, right? So if you're responsible for Ford and you get the GT500 or the Ford GT, hey, why don't you come check this out, or whatever it is.
Right.
So
Right.
So what were your specialties? Or what brands were you?
Domestic brands headquartered in North America.
Okay.
Leave it to the imagination.
Okay.
You can say, I mean, yeah. There's three. There's three choices.
Who could that be?
Yeah. Did you do the Hellcat? Oh no, the Hellcat's Pirelli. Sorry.
You gotta.
Yeah.
There's other Asian manufacturers and
Got
new
it.
EVs. So there's a bunch out there.
Okay.
What? So I went. It was not a French tire company. I went to an Italian brand, but they took me into their factory, and what shocked me was there's like two dudes with X-Acto knives that still carve the tires.
Oh yeah.
Is there the French equivalent?
Yeah, so we kind of got sidetracked, but
Yeah.
some of those tuning levers that you might have in the split fitment is different sculpture designs and tread depths front to rear. Knowing that the front tire is the first one to hit standing water, tread depth is more crucial there, and it displaces the bulk of it, so the rear could potentially have a bit less tread depth and kind of give you that rear stability, because as tread depth increases, you've got to try and balance that rigidity. And sports cars, or like a slick tire, gives you,
that's that squirminess they talk about, right? That the higher the knobbies, the treads are. Right?
Yeah. So like if you're looking at the spectrum, thinking of driving on a winter tire versus a sport tire.
Yeah.
So
and then also the front tires. Is this correct? I think like 75% of the braking is done on the
majority,
front.
yeah.
Yeah, the majority. So.
But back to it. Are there dudes with X-Acto knives or women with X-Acto knives that are carving?
Yep. Yeah. So we'll do carving studies where you might start with what is essentially a slick tire and start, go ahead and do, throw some stuff on the wall and see what sticks. If you're trying to find a new design direction, those are tires that might show up at special like SEMA builds. We might carve a horse into the tread sculpture or something for a one-off.
No, these they literally was like they were hand.
Yep.
It was amazing. We walked in this room. They're chain smoking. There's nudie pictures all over the walls, and it was with two female PR people. They're like, they're the only ones that can do this. They get to do whatever they want. I'm like, this is unbelievable.
They're about to get canceled. All right, I just want to ask you just a nerd out, and then we'll talk about the future of what you're doing. Let's say you wanted to get into what you used to do. You want to be a test driver. Is there a thing for the folks playing at home they can do in their car? They can try at home that can tell them whether they're any good at this, right? Like, and the example is, there are a lot of people who are wine snobs who think they actually know the difference between wine, and then like you literally can pour them $2 chuck from Trader Joe's and like a $500 bottle. They cannot tell the effing difference, right?
Right.
So, I know, GM had a program where if you want to be their level 1, 2, 3 driver, you gotta there's a reference lap you gotta do, or I think, it's SAE has this program where they do all this training, but the final, they'll go out and take, 10 pounds out of the front left tire, and you don't know, it's a blindfold test. They'll do something to the car, and you go out and do 3 laps, and you have to figure out what it is. Is there something like that you can tell our folks, that would tell them if they have any hope of being a test driver?
So at least from the Michelin standpoint, the way it works is in order to be able to apply for the position, you've got to have a 4-year technical degree.
Okay.
So generally all of us end up being mechanical engineers just by background and kind of like affinity towards cars and performance.
Fail. Okay, keep going.
I might fail twice. Go ahead.
Generally, you've got at least 2 years of experience within the company. And so as we touched on, the Michelin Lawrence Proving Ground in South Carolina is 4,000 acres, which as you might deduce means it's pretty rural, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of an isolated location. So it's great to have a minimum of 2 years experience within the company to kind of give you some of that exposure just to the happenings and how things work and how things operate. And it's a bit of a feeder to make sure, you're loyal to Michelin before you.
Okay.
So those criteria. Then you've got to wait on the rarity for a position to open, knowing that there's really only 6 or 7 active test drivers in North America at a time.
Okay.
And
That's it. That few.
And as you can
Wow.
imagine, the turnover rate is not very
low.
high.
Yeah.
You
Because
know?
they're so well paid, or it's super fun.
I'll leave it.
Just say both. Just say both.
Yeah, for sure both.
Just say both.
Okay.
I'll tell you the real story when he's gone.
Okay. But wait, hang on. You still
yeah.
haven't got to it. So
No, well,
Oh,
this
keep
is
go-
just
keep-
to be able to apply.
No, but Ed's saying, what can we do at home?
so there's no native. So what you're telling me
What's
is
your superpower? That's what he's trying
what
to
you,
say.
no, what you're telling me is, are you saying that Michelin test drivers are made, not born, or do you have to have some innate ability, some special sensitivity in your hands or butt or something?
So in my case, I applied to the position.
Okay.
I had never been to the proving grounds before. I was working at the technical center. You show up. The first thing you do is you drive cars that you've never driven before on tracks you've never driven before next to a certified driver, and he's got a stopwatch, and he's just watching you like this.
So he's just
So
weeding
you're
out.
right. There
just
is
messing with
some
you.
innate level of ability that you're expected to
So
bring to
they
the table.
quickly weed out a lot of applicants. Like, all right, no chance.
that
no
job
hope.
must suck.
So it's a sink or swim from the get-go, and that's really important because test driving is a high pressure job. Like I said, there's lots of times where you're driving at and beyond the limit because you've got to find out what happens there, and you might be in car one of one.
Yeah.
Like the margin for error doesn't exist, and
So that's interesting. So I know.
He's a Navy SEAL of
Yeah.
of automotive testing.
No, but I've met like third-party people that take, like, I met a guy, Land Rover Defender, and we were doing some in my mind, 9/10 off-roading with it. Like, we were really very close to the limit. And one obstacle in particular was about 10/10, and this guy was a third-party evaluator. And I said, yeah, it's like 10/10. He's like, well, in my world, this is 6/10. I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, if we give the car back in one piece, Land Rover's like, you didn't test it. Like, we find the limit, we go beyond. How far beyond the limit do you push tires as part of the job?
Destructive testing.
Yeah, so like sliding, you definitely want to be able to take a look at progressivity beyond the limit, and then that recovery back to home base.
But how do you measure that? Is it because I've slid cars and caught it, and it's like, whoa, yeah. But like you have to like quantify it and say that's a B plus, right, or whatever the scale is.
0 to 10 rating scale, the SAE scale, and generally
SAE scale for drifting.
Well, rating criteria, and then it applies to all the performances: noise, comfort, wet, dry, snow, etc.
So what's a 10 on a drifting? Is
Like,
it like
unobtainable.
Okay.
Well, I mean, like 10 means like you can't get any better, so we generally don't.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
unobtainable?
That's how Ed does. That's how Ed does
unrecoverable?
performance evaluations.
Right. Unrecoverable.
Okay.
Okay. So when people apply and kind of make it through, you just weren't some guy off the street. You were interested in cars. I read your bio. You were interested in cars in college. You did some racing. Like, I mean, most test drivers have that kind of background, a high performance driving background, right?
So again, that's just the application process. Fortunately for me, I passed the stopwatch test. Then you accept the position after doing normal personnel interviews to make sure you're a reasonable human. And then a year of training starts before you're actually producing anything. And so that is basically, I mentioned earlier, our skid pad, the half-mile polished concrete wet skid pad. The sign-off for that is a two continuous drifting laps in each direction in a rear-wheel drive, and then pitch and catch 2 continuous laps in each direction in a front-wheel drive.
So
my
but
sign-off.
you get a year of practice to learn how to do that.
But who knows what they're going to sign you off in.
Right.
So in my case, the first time I drove a C6Z06 was on that wet skid pad. That was a humbling experience, but I got it.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Very, very cool.
That's
But it's it's almost like an apprenticeship for a year.
for sure.
That's fantastic. 'Cause I think that's kind of left like a lot of the U.S. job market. Like there really aren't one of our colleagues, Jethro Bovington. I used to host a show with him. When he got hired, his first magazine job writing about cars, they basically had him learn to drive for 2 years before he wrote anything. They were just like, and that's why this one generation of British car journalists could really drift like crazy because they had 2 years just to do what you were doing, just drift. And it's like, oh yeah, that's interesting. That's just the way they
It
did
shows
it.
how invested Michelin is in our skill set. So it's really a year before you're giving anything back to the company.
Right.
So the first cut is car control hand skills. So that you kind of hone that driving anything and everything, and that could be an F250 drifting that, and that's also on the wet handling track. all the things, all seasons, summer tire, winter tire, everything. That's car control. And then you start the actual method training. And so then you have to learn the test method so that we're all trained to be interchangeable. You hit this bump at 35 miles an hour with the AC off. You take this turn at 60 and you look at your hand position and measure, gain.
Why AC off? Out of curiosity. How would that affect the tires?
For impact noise or tread pedal noise, etc.
Okay.
So,
Alright.
depending on the criteria,
Yeah,
right?
so you got to be like all senses all the time when you're doing this kind of
So
stuff.
as a subjective driver, we're trained to follow a very specific method so that we're interchangeable. But in the end, of course, it is our butt to seat opinion.
Right. No, it's interesting. I was asking because we do our of the year programs, and we're typically at a proving ground. Car of the year, we go to Hyundai Proving Ground, and one of our judges is this guy Chris Theodore, who was one time he was the head of engineering for Chrysler, then for Ford. He was the lead engineer on the Ford GT, among a million other things. And we call it special surfaces. It's like, bumps in the road, potholes, whatever.
Cow catching
cracks.
grade, all that stuff. Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I've been doing this for like 9 years or whatever it was at the time. I just kind of go out and be like, yeah, it feels like that. And I was like, hey, Chris, come here. Get in the car. Let me see what you're looking for. Shout out, and he goes, cars are kind of like sitting inside of a drum. And so I'm looking for like a boom. That's not an impact movement. He's like, I'm looking for sound over these kind of things. And I was like, oh my God, wow. Yeah, it's really cool.
And so in that case, like noise and comfort are some of the hardest ones. So we'll test them separately, but you're like, I felt the bump. Of course I felt the bump. I hit the bump.
Yeah.
Did I feel it more or less than the last one?
Right.
What about 2 tires ago?
Yeah.
And so it's lots of blind repeats. And annually, every subjective test driver completes what we call a quality plan. And so that's somewhere between 5 and 10 tires perhaps. And we'll all run the test, and we'll all submit the answers to the professor, and we need to correlate.
Right.
And there's got to be incredible. I mean, there's got to be a boredom factor you have to fight too, right? And just
that's the mental. That's why noise and comfort is the hardest, because that requires a lot of mental fortitude. To
really
don't do the to-do list. Don't plan your weekend.
Right.
Here and now.
It's like listening to this podcast. It requires a lot of focus. Zing!
Ed, you're so self-defeating.
Okay.
No, I noticed with race car drivers, though, it's like, you're funny you said it was 2 tires ago. One characteristic that I don't have that I notice race car drivers has is they can say, yeah, that bump that I hit funny on lap 4 did this. And I'm like, wait, you remember a corner? Like, I barely remember like a session, Right. And so is that kind of...
And so
you had that innately, or was that like developed?
That's developed, and it comes with comfort. And so that's where it comes back to why the beginning of training is all, beyond the limit. Low mu, but slide anything and everything.
Define mu for our audience.
Friction.
Low friction. So like a low grip surface.
Okay.
All right, let's pivot here because we're getting the hook to get Ed off. What are you doing now? What's your the test driving stuff was in your...
I'm just a washed up test driver now.
Yeah.
So I've taken all that firsthand product experience and that passion and just kind of knowing our portfolio in and out, and I've moved into a product marketing role, so that in this example where Porsche approaches Michelin, I can look at what they're asking for, I can identify the right product in our portfolio, and kind of weigh in on whether I think it's a good business opportunity or not. Because in the end, like you guys pointed out, our goal is to, be on fitments where our technology and our innovation can be, highlighted, align with the original equipment manufacturer, and to please the end consumer. We want them to buy the tire again, because that's where we believe the direction's going in. So as you pointed out, based on the price point of the vehicle, there's different loyalty levels.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
for sure.
Higher price vehicle, higher loyalty. Is that track?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Generally.
Okay. And then, tell me, because you kind of said it. EVs. Are they is this a good business opportunity?
Yeah,
tire?
for sure.
What are the core? That was a leading question. What are the what are some of the challenges that you're for that consumer, that customer, from an OE replacement and whatever.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot of excitement. We're excited about it. Like it's a great place to be in. Michelin's been making energy efficient tires for over 30 years. So it's a natural progression for us, and we're well prepared. What's confusing for the consumer, and I can kind of empathize, is all the different verbiage and buzzwords being thrown around. But in in the end, an EV is still a car. It's The propulsion method is sure it's exciting and it's innovative and it's fast evolving, but in the end, the tire still holds up a vehicle. Generally, it has 4 tires.
Yes.
So. I empathize with the consumer who's an early adopter, but the important thing is, Michelin's got a diverse OE portfolio and replacement market portfolio to fit their needs. And what we want to do is let the consumer choose their priority. So we talked about Porsche end marking. EVs also have their particular markings. If you want to preserve the personality of your vehicle, if you're the first owner, then repurchase that OE tire. If you have a different priority, maybe it's more sporty, maybe it's longer lifespan, more traction, whatever it is, you can choose your own adventure.
Got it.
For the person who is like a real EV nerd and they love the angle about sustainability and it's good for the environment and they want to say maximize range. Is there any advice you want to give folks, or any
tire pressure
information? Well, just the best way to do that, but also balance, because I keep going back to this sort of fundamental challenge Michelin, any tire manufacturer, has in balancing performance and grip and rolling resistance and that efficiency angle. Should they be concerned at all if they pick like a tire that is targeting high efficiency, that it won't give them ride comfort or grip or something? You know what I'm saying?
The compromise is what is challenging, and that's where kind of the investment in the technology and the in the end the sale price kind of correlate, right? Like it's easy to do good at one thing. It's really hard to do good at 2 things or 3 things.
Right.
And that's where Michelin likes to focus its energy on delivering for those things, and knowing that not every car company prioritizes wear as much as we do and as much as the end consumer does.
Right.
So you've kind of got to protect that performance regardless of whether that car company's asking for it.
But it's all, it's just funny, because with EVs, the name of the game for now is efficiency in terms of range, right? That's a big concern. And we were having this on our internal MotorTrend Slack channel, but I own a Rivian, and I got the off-road tires. I bought the car truck because I like to go off-roading. But I bought it knowing that I'm taking a 30-mile range hit by getting the off-road tires, the all-terrain tires, as opposed to the low rolling resistant street tires. And and it's a big hit, And I just don't think a lot of consumers maybe are just aware of that, like how much tires really do affect everything about the vehicle.
So what you pointed out is true, but it also isn't specific to EVs.
No, totally.
You've just got a beautiful display that shows your range and is easy to, kind of digest as a consumer.
Thank you for saying that. And that's something we talked about a lot, like with EV towing. Well, guess what? If you put a 12,000-pound trailer on the back of a gas truck, diesel truck, its range is also cut in half. It's just easier to fill
it up in 10 minutes.
Yeah. But you're right. It's still a car. Yeah.
And so there's lots of scenarios where you might, if you compare your fuel mileage right before you replace your tires to when you put brand new tires on, it's going to drop because it's mass and overall efficiency as the tread block height grows.
Yeah.
And that's regardless of tire manufacturer. What's challenging is with EVs, it's in your face, right? You've got a bar graph, or it's green or red or yellow, or here's your watt out.
And also we have a real infrastructure crisis in this country at the moment. If you don't own, let's say, a Tesla, it's really hard to charge them if you go away from your house. And so range is really not only in your face; it's front of mind. It's charging anxiety, and so yeah.
So we've kind of benchmarked that industry and realized that once you own an EV, that range anxiety kind of subsides, right? Do you necessarily charge your phone every night to 100%, or could you charge it every other day, right? Or is 30 miles on the scheme of 300 palpable because now you have more off-road traction and you so that's the choose your own adventure side of things.
It was never a trade-off until I decided to drive my Rivian to Laguna Seca. And
well, we got to our hotel last night and the power was out, so that was exciting too.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Ed, last question from me. You're a huge car guy. In addition to your day job, personally, you're really interested in this category of the world. What are you most excited about here at Rennsport? What are you dying to go see, hear, listen, watch? What is it?
I think the tractor race is going to be really unique.
Yeah!
I love the reverse corkscrew run. I haven't been fortunate enough to go to Goodwood personally, which is a bucket list for me, but this kind of emulates the hill climb. So
have you been around this track?
So my first time around this track is kind of special. It was in 2017. I was here supporting Monterey Car Week, representing
Yeah.
Michelin, and was asked to stay a few extra days. And I had the privilege of doing some lead follow. I was the lead in partnership with Singer.
Oh,
Oh,
So my
okay.
first laps
so
around
you've
here
actually driven a Singer.
was in a Singer Classic.
Yeah.
So
Ah.
pretty epic. I peaked early, right? Like
Yeah,
it's all been
not a
downhill.
bad- yeah. My first laps around here, I think we were in a Miata. I did the Skip Barber racing school.
I mean, I would happily drive my rental
Boy,
car here today. Like it's a
I
lovely
could
track.
figure out my first. Oh man.
My first crash here
Yes,
was
Jaguar.
Oh, man.
Jaguar
Jaguar
XF
turn six.
Yeah,
I
I
yeah,
got
yeah.
nothing to add to that conversation.
That's legendary.
Legend-
That's
it's
a
not that
legendary crash.
Yeah, we fixed
yeah.
it with duct tape for the photo shoot. Fine. Well, listen.
Where
Ed,
was your second crash? Go ahead.
here? Not in the crash here. Ed Gliss.
Yeah.
We could talk to you forever. I'd love to pick your brain more about how to become a better test driver and hear more about all the work you do with Michelin.
Yeah.
But thank you so much.
Come
for
visit
joining
us in South Carolina. We'll make some real good videos.
We've
do it.
been. We were both on the X5 launch in 2000.
X5 or X6?
X6 launch
X6.
2007, 8.
Okay, I was 13 through 22.
Okay.
2013.
But yeah. We'd love. I
Lawrence,
love. We
it's
love
been a- it's been a
proving
minute.
grounds. We love
We
proving
do.
grounds.
We do.
Yeah.
It's been a
Anywhere you can speed and the cops aren't allowed on the premises.
Or if you do a video shoot and they shut down the roads for you, I've had the privilege of doing that. That's another highlight.
Yes.
I did that for about 9 years. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Awesome.
Still doing that.
But thank you.
Yeah, been
It's
a pleasure.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
man.